One of the biggest things I wish all women knew in regards to health outcomes is that we as women are not simply small men. So, a big challenge in this world that we face with all this advice that's out there about weight loss and fitness and nutrition and do this and do that, that is all almost exclusively built and made for men. The clinical studies, all the advice, that is all made with testosterone in mind, which is the main male sex hormone, right? Men are different than us. We are not just simply small men with testosterone. We actually have three main hormones as women. We have estrogen, progesterone, and we also have testosterone. And that makes us completely different beings with completely different needs. So, if all that stuff isn't really working for you, there's nothing wrong with you. So that's the first thing I want to say, ladies. If you've been like following the advice and trying to eat healthy and trying to do the different diets and exercising and doing all the things and like it's just not working and you're just not feeling like you're thriving and like something's missing and you're like, what is wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. It's the system. It was literally built for men by men and it wasn't built for us. Now, this is where cycle syncing comes in. So cycle syncing is a term that was coined back in about 2010 by a functional nutritionist, Alyssa Vitti. She wrote a book about it, Women Code, I believe it's called. And basically this was such a awakening for women when we started learning about this, because what cycle syncing tells us is that we're not the same all month long, right? So I want you to think of the moon. The moon goes through 4 phases every month, right? And we expect that. We know that it has a 28-day cycle, and we know, there's going to be a new moon, there's going to be a waxing moon or waning moon, full moon, waxing moon, and then new moon again, right? It does the same cycle every single month. Well, that's exactly how we as women are. We also have an average 28-day menstrual cycle, and we go through 4 different phases, just like the moon does. Now, society isn't really built for that. It's not really built for us to thrive, right? It's built for testosterone. Men, on the other hand, they get testosterone every 15 minutes. Very steady, every day, day in, day out, they're like this. Whereas for us ladies, if you were to look at a graph of what our hormones are doing throughout the month, it would be a bunch of peaks and dips. And there's sometimes when estrogen is rising and peaking and then she dips. There's times when progesterone is rising and peaking and then she dips. And there's even a time when we get a peak of testosterone during our ovulation. Now, I want you to think of each of these hormones as having different personalities. And because they have different personalities, they have different needs, right? Like you're kind of different. Think of it like you and your friends. You all kind of have some unique individual qualities, right? Like you have a specific personality, they have a specific personality, and you guys understand each other's personalities, and that makes you friends, right? Well, hormones are your friends too. You just need to understand their personalities. So that's the beauty of cycle syncing is we as women, we all go through the same pattern like the moon. It might seem like a lot when you first think about it, but it's pretty simple, right? The moon does the same thing every single month. So do we. So once we unlock that code and we understand what our hormones are doing every single month, we know how to support that. We know how to tailor. So this is the main premise of cycle syncing, is tailoring your nutrition. You can tailor your workouts to it. I do. I love it. I've gotten so much good results with that. You can tailor your life activities. If you run a business, you can tailor your business to the different phases of your hormonal cycle, because certain hormones are going to have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, right? And so oh, I'm in this phase, I have these strengths, these weaknesses. I'm in this phase, I have these strengths, these weaknesses, right? So when you know those needs, you can really hone in, and that's how you take your health to the next level without burnout, without exhausting yourself, because you're not trying to act like a man anymore. And this isn't a weakness. I know we kind of all grew up in a world where it's like, be an independent woman, do this, do that. And it's really, and I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm saying I think a lot of that was basically like act like a man. And we're not men. So basically, give yourself permission to be a whole woman. It doesn't need to look like a man. You can do some manly things if you want to. I do. I mean, I love lifting heavy weights in the gym, right? I mean, you can do whatever you want. But here's the thing. when we look at our hormonal phases and the way that we are naturally just cyclical, like the moon, and attuned to nature, and see that as a strength, it changes everything. It's not a weakness, it's a strength. And when you live in alignment with that, you take your health to the next level, you take your libido to the next level. It's easier to maintain your weight. You don't get stuck in plateaus in your nutrition or in your fitness. It is the key that unlocks everything. And I just really think it goes back to the fact that we as human beings really need to get back in touch with nature. We are nature, right? And I think in the woman, it's so obvious in our monthly cycle, right? We're like the moon. That is our nature. That is nature manifesting in us. We are cyclical, right? Now, the beautiful thing is this applies to women of any age, whether you don't get a period, whether you've already gone through menopause, whether you're on like birth control where you're not getting a period, you can still use this to your advantage. Your body, you still have the same hormones, you're still a cyclical being, it's still gonna help you. One of the most important things that you can do as a woman, if you are getting a cycle, is to track your cycle. This is how you start, right? And if you're not getting a cycle, don't worry, you can absolutely just go in accordance with the calendar or the moon phases, just like the moon does, right? You're still gonna get the same benefits. So the 4 different phases that we go through every month. Phase 1, this is going to be the first day you bleed, or if you're not getting a period, you can just choose any day as your day 1. Phase 1 is estrogen. That's when you start bleeding. That's day 1 through day 10. So it'll be a little longer than your actual period. That's estrogen. Phase 2, we go into ovulation. That's about days 10 to 15 is when we're ovulating, and that's when estrogen is actually coming to a peak and testosterone is coming in. Then if you look at a graph and see what our hormones are doing on the monthly calendar, all of our hormones kind of take this dip, kind of a little crash. I call it the dip phase that we go through for 4 days. And then we move into that final phase the week prior to your period. There's about an 8-day window there where progesterone is rising and coming to a peak. Now, this is where I say that most diets and fitness plans have kind of failed women everywhere, because what worked for us in the front half of our cycle for estrogen and testosterone is more in alignment with what works with men. And we can kind of get away with doing those things in that phase. But when we get to that progesterone phase, she is completely different. She has completely different needs. She does not like stress. She needs to eat carbs. She doesn't have the same energy levels. She doesn't care about drive or stamina or motivation. She basically wants to sit on the couch by herself, watch Netflix, and eat some yummy carbs. She has a completely different personality. And so, a lot of women ask me, like, what do you think about this diet, like keto or intermittent fasting or low carb or stuff like that? And I think those are tools, but there's a time and a place of how we implement them, and we shouldn't just be doing the same thing all month long, right? Because we're like the moon, we go through different phases. So a woman that, for example, does strict keto all month long every month, she might be okay in her first phases of the month, but progesterone does not like that. And progesterone naturally likes carbs, right? And if you think about it, this makes sense, because what does every woman crave? What do you crave the week before your period? Probably carbs, right? I mean, some women it's chocolate and other things too, right? But we like that salty, carby, crunchy, right? You know what I'm talking about? That's what we crave, and there's a reason why, because progesterone loves carbs. And so this is why completely cutting out a food group like, say, carbs doesn't work for us as women long term. Not only will it cause plateaus, but it can also cause hormonal imbalances long term, because while that might work for estrogen and testosterone, it doesn't work for progesterone. And that's our missing piece as women. We need to take all of our hormones into account, right? And that's where cycle syncing comes in and teaches us, hey, we can do different things, different strategies at different times of the month. And once you get into that pattern, it's really easy and you just thrive. It's so sustainable. Every woman that I've taught this to has been like, not only does it make so much sense and just feel right, it's fun, it's easy to follow, it doesn't feel like a strict diet, it feels like it's naturally aligned to me and my body, and it is. So if you want to learn the blueprint and exactly how to do this and get all the details, because I have this mapped out to a science and I'll make it really easy for you, join me in my new free masterclass, Designed Differently: How to Thrive as a Woman in a Man-Made World. Link below, sign up. Even if you can't make the live, sign up to get the replay. See you there.